rocks around the Billy Squire, big pound wow, rocks around the Billy Squire, big pound wow, big.
This is so exciting. Thank you for having me both.
Thank you for joining us.
No, thank you.
Well done, Ronan, for securing a guest.
Yeah, Anna, you're the first guest that I've got on.
Seriously?
There's been people who are mutual friends of ours, but yeah, you're the first person that I've actually taken the initiative myself. So it's a monumental day all around.
It's an honor. I'm really excited to be your first guest from
You're
your side,
also
Ronan.
our first guest after our brief. We've just had a mini hiatus of not of our own creation, just kind of unfortunate circumstances of Ronan being on holiday, and then we tried to record an episode, but there was some issues, so that didn't end up going through, and then I went on holiday, so we've had a little break, and we're back.
And that was your new season.
Yeah,
I guess this can be the new season. To be fair, maybe I will just make that can be the excuse, it was planned all along.
That's actually such a good shout.
Season 2. This is officially season 2.
There are a lot of podcasts that seem to do that. The season thing is an approach that a lot of them take. So
the only problem is if we make this season 2, we now don't have an excuse to take a break later in the year if we decide
just a short
between season 2 and season 3. Yeah. Another hiatus.
Yeah, season 1 was a year long, season 2 1 month long, season 3 who knows. It's a mystery. How are you guys? How have you been?
I don't know whether I've got too much to report. I mean, yeah, don't know, ticking along. I had Spain obviously, but I've spoken to you both about that. And so it'd feel disingenuous.
Off air though, Ronan.
I know. It just feels a little bit.
Is it a real conversation if it wasn't recorded?
Well, I can just state for the record that I saw flamingos because I've been telling absolutely everybody I know. So it's just nice to have it on recording as well that we saw flamingos in Spain. That was pretty great. That's just been keeping me going just non-stop since then. Probably will do for another few years after that.
Has it just been a quiet couple of weekends then since then?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's been going on. It's been little bits and bobs, just summer vibes, seeing people going to the pub.
Yeah.
Just all that sort of stuff, I think.
That the plan for this weekend as well? Picnicking at the park or something?
Picnic in the park, yeah. Well, exactly. That's just pure laid back summer vibes. That's pretty much all I want. So quite excited about
Hopefully the sun stays out for it.
Yeah, because I haven't come up with a plan B. So
maybe you should, mate. Have you considered that?
I think I'd basically just figured go all in because otherwise it requires booking somewhere. I'm sure I'd be able to come up with something on the fly if it goes horrifically wrong.
Yeah.
But,
a Weatherspoons.
Yeah, I don't know whether there are many Weatherspoons, in the area.
Oh no!
I'm sure there will be places that we could go to. I'll just figure that one out, and I'll base it on group size and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's not my natural forte. Need Hannah.
Planning.
Yeah. Which is odd for somebody working in events, actually, when I think about it.
You can't even plan your own event.
Yeah.
You just dedicate all your brain power to other people.
Exactly.
Just very selfless.
Yeah. No, that's exactly it.
How about you, Anna? Have you been up to anything fun these past few weekends?
Oh, I've had a busy month because Pride. So Pride keeps me busy, keeps me exhausted, but it's fucking done. I am officially ashamed. There we are. Opposite of Pride.
Was it just a hectic weekend? Were you there for the parades and everything?
Yeah, so I marched in the parade for the first time, which was very exciting. Nice. With Bimini Bombula, Queen of Drag Race fame, UK season 2.
When you say with, and you were in the same parade, or she was actively on the float kind of vibe?
No, she was part of our delegation.
Oh my god. Wow.
Yeah,
I like that. In the same parade, she was 500 people in front of us. Yeah. But I'm just gonna claim.
I don't know. That's just a big deal.
I've been I've got a selfie with Bimini. Oh. Yeah, we had a chat. She was lovely. Yeah, it was great.
Insane.
Good time all around. Yeah. but I'm glad Pride is over because I'm officially dead.
I can imagine it's the kind of thing that just absolutely takes out of you by the end of it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah.
Is it full on from like basically from morning till midnight? I imagine.
Yeah, and like because I like work in the what we call the LGBT sector. It's like every night of the week there's another like party or reception to go to, and it sounds fun, but it ends up being like extremely exhausting.
If you're there for work, is it a lot of kind of like mingling, like meet and greet, like
networking?
Networking, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, so it's not actually like relaxed socializing. There's always like a bit of like a agenda. Makes it sound really sinister, but you know what I mean. Like,
oh yeah, no, I'm there for a reason, and it's like talk people's ears off about issues, which is like, yeah, it is exhausting, but it's always fun. Like, it's a lovely mix of both. But I'm ready to not talk to anyone.
You were ready for a week of not talking to anyone, and that's when Ronan lined you up to do a podcast talking to
you've come to the right place.
Music.
I was like, can I hear the sound of my own voice anymore? And you know what? Yes, it turns out I can.
Oh, that's good, because then you can listen back and you can, give us a 5-star rating and some playback time and share it with all your friends. Get that engagement out. We need that engagement after our hiatus, because all of the listeners would have dropped off thinking that we're just one of the many podcasts that just stops unannounced. But we're not. We're still going. Season 2, baby.
Season 2.
Season 2. I've just come back from doing I did the Yorkshire Three Peaks on Saturday.
Oh my god!
So I'm a little bit sore. Yeah, thanks. It was with work. It was like I guess it was kind of a team building activity, but not. It wasn't like It wasn't like official work organized. It was like colleagues from work were doing it and asked if I wanted to join. And at some point, I presumably said yes, but I don't remember saying yes. So I just kind of got roped into it. And then it was just one of those things. It's like, and then we were doing it for charity, and it's like, well, you can't back out now because it's for charity. And it's also the kind of thing that I kind of enjoy doing. To be fair, is like big walks and stuff, but. Yeah, we started on Saturday about 6 a.m. and finished about 5:30. That's 25 miles, 3 hills.
That's mad.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it. My knees hurt. Turns out I have bad knees, so that was an interesting discovery. I've never had knee problems while walking before, and then coming down the last hill, I just was in absolute agony.
No.
But other than that, it was a really. It was an enjoyable experience. I don't know. I just quite like being out in, the wilds. I mean, it's not that wild.
That's an incredible achievement, because they're all really near me, Louis. And so I've walked. I've done the 3 peaks, but not necessarily in one day.
All individually.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing them.
But that's the thing. It was funny just doing it. I've never done it before, where you do a hill and then you go, oh, you know what I fancy right now? A second hill. And the third hill. In the moment, I was kind of expecting to do the first one and then be just have this crushing wave of low morale. Oh my god, there's 2 to go. But the first one, it was just oh shit, we've done one of the hills. Feeling pretty good about it.
What order did you do, and did you have a favourite?
So we did Ingleborough first. So that's the tallest one first, and we went up the steep side, which I quite like. I quite like getting a hill done quickly. If you do the steep side, it's over quicker. I don't like those long drawn out ascents. So we did Ingleborough first, and it was absolutely covered in fog when we were up there at 6 a.m, which was quite good as well, because it meant you couldn't see the challenge that loomed ahead. You were just feet to the pavement. Well, not pavement, but feet to the rock, I guess. And then bam, you're at the top. And then we did Pennygent second, and we finished with Whernside.
Nice.
And Whernside's probably the easiest one, but it's when you're already at that point where you've done 20 miles of walking and 2 hills, it's a bit more of a struggle than it would be if you just did it. I think if you did it solo, it would be a really nice, chill day out with your friends or family. But at the end of 2 hills, it's already it's a pretty gargantuan task, because you are just crippled at that point. But no, it was good. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, it's impressive not only to do it, but also to enjoy it. That wasn't even asked of you, but Yeah, it's quite something.
There's definitely this aspect with other people like talking about how like miserable they were in the wind and rain, because we had like a full collection of weather. Like the first two hills, it was like really, really high winds at the top and like quite like aggressively raining. And then on the final hill, it was like lovely and sunny. That just came out of nowhere. But even when it was windy and rainy, I was just like, I don't mind this. Like I could tell the people I was doing it with were really unhappy. And if I'd have said to them that I didn't mind the wind and rain, they'd have probably
Smoke
tried
bastards.
to kill me. Because they were like swearing at the weather and stuff. Since seeing them in the office today, them talking about it, being like, oh yeah, the worst part of it was easily when it was pissing it down. But I do just remember being like, hood up, walking in the rain, and being like, yeah, this is all right. I don't know. I just felt content in the moment. I just wish I wasn't in so much pain. I just feel a little bit disappointed by my knees. But other than that,
Are they still hurting?
they're a bit. It's like stiff. It's like if I don't move, then they get kind of stiffened up and quite painful. And then if I keep like a little bit of like, so I'm just here rocking my knees back and forth while we have this conversation, basically.
I finally got a climbing injury the other day, so I'm sort of doing the same, trying to limber up my ankle. Like, I mean, I don't think it's anything too bad, thankfully. Like, hopefully should be able to get going on it again soon. But I basically just slipped from a hold and I clipped. It was like on a slab, so like one of those like whatever the opposite of an overhang is, like it was just ever so you sort of slide down the wall when you slip, and I just clipped a hold on the way down with my foot, so the foot just kind of bent backwards essentially.
Like got a jar.
So yeah, it didn't feel good at all, and then it was just pretty sore and stiff, but had pretty limited swelling, and it pretty mobile on it now. It's just still a little bit stiff, like like I know to sit on stairs most of all and stuff like that, the things where you really have to move your foot. But otherwise I think hopefully gonna be okay. But I'll be joining you with the kind of trying to limbering up throughout the
your hair is just making like little like noises.
You know what, I don't know about you guys, but I think that as I'm getting older, I am already making old man noises, like or old woman noises for you, Anna. I don't know, like.
Oh, thank you.
Are you guys getting that? I've just been noticing it lately. I'm doing a lot more like oof. Like
more like when you sit down.
Yeah, sit down, get up. I don't even know what it is. It's like, is it?
I think it's a mental state.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of your brand, Ronan, to be honest. I feel like you've been approaching dad state for years now at this point. And you're getting there.
I think groans and stuff, though, that's like overshooting dad state into granddad state.
I mean, to be fair, yeah, like probably that as well. That's probably not.
It's your own fault for making a playlist about a retired gardener. Like, you're just wanting to become imbuing the retiree already.
Yeah, maybe I was channeling my my inner energy on that one.
Have you got any injuries to report, Anna? You want to pile on the twisted ankle from Pride or anything like that?
Oh, thank God, no. I'm like in my sensible shoe era. Like I bought these like trail shoes so that I never roll my ankle, and it's changed my damn life. Like, buy sensible shoes and your life is going to get better. That's my advice to everyone listening.
My sensible shoe era. I think everybody needs to enter into that at some point.
Yeah, you hit your mid-20s and you feel your knees. It's unacceptable.
It is like quite disheartening when it's just like, oh no, it comes for us all, The knee pains, the aging.
I kind of thought you were ready to like make a transition, and you. Louis has the knack for. I guess, how would you describe it? It's almost like the dad jokes of transitions, I guess. Like, it's sort of just caught.
I don't know if that's a compliment or an insult.
Both, maybe. I don't know. It's a
little bit of both. I mean, I feel a little bit like pressured now because I actually was thinking like, oh man, my mind is blank. I can't think of anything to like transition over to.
We don't need. We don't. You know what? It should be a really easy one as well, but I feel like we've missed the boat. But it was Speak Now. So.
Hey Anna, this is your album. Speak Now.
There we go.
Bam! You've done it.
More
of something else entirely.
Not forced at all. That's fine.
That was beautiful.
Well, I was there like thinking like, oh, you know, sometimes people talk about like pains as like your body speaking to you, and I was like, that's not gonna work. That's gonna be really like awkwardly wedged in there. But yeah, let's move on past it. Let's actually jump into the album discussion, because this is, well, Anna, this is your pick. So I don't know if you want to give us a little bit of a brief synopsis rundown of what it is, and kind of like briefly why you picked it.
Yeah, I feel like when Ronan approached me, like, what would you want to talk about? There was kind of this war within me, like, do I pick my actual honest answer of like my favorite album, or is it feels like almost like a branding exercise? Like, how am I going to present myself to the world? And Ronan and I had this discussion, and he was like, no, you gotta be true to yourself. You gotta like, you know, be honest. And I kind of started to question, like, why would I even try and present something cooler? Like, what is that? And how much that speaks about Taylor Swift in general, right? Like, I feel like she has been denigrated as quote unquote uncool for her whole career, and she like even makes fun of it herself. And I think it is something about like, she's just really good at writing about girls and girlhood and what it's like to be a young woman. And just historically, that's never been taken seriously. And this album, I think, really epitomizes her writing about what it's like to be a teenage girl. And she's just really honest and specific about it in a way that really landed with me when it came out. This was my first favorite album.
Nice.
Speak Now is her third studio album, entirely written by her, no other co-writers on it. She wrote it from the age of 18 to 20 years old. So it like really hits a spot of like between childhood and adulthood, like reflecting on what it's like to be a teenage girl, and then like looking forward, what's coming next. And it's her final album in the country genre. It was after this that she really exploded out into like international success and fame. It's kind of a turning point in her career as well as like her life. And listening to it when I was 13, it hit so hard. So it's quite an interesting one, I think. It's not her most popular, but it is a fan favorite.
That's really interesting, because I was wondering why it was. I knew it was going to be a Taylor Swift one because Ronan had mentioned previously, but I was really interested because I feel like I've got like a passing frame of reference for Taylor Swift. Like, I know some of her bigger songs. I have an appreciation for her like artistry. I do think she's like a phenomenal like songwriter, but I don't know many of her like, not necessarily deeper cuts, but like her older stuff, and especially the country stuff, because I'm not that much into country. So like when it was this one, I was like, this is an album I've not really heard of. So I was like very curious to know why it was specifically this one, and the fact that this is like your first favorite album. I think that's just so like perfect for like a pick for this show. I mean, out of interest, what was going to be your like cool pick if you were going to go down that route, if you were going to try and brand yourself as a
It's cooler than I actually am. It was probably going to be something by Pavement. Big into Pavement, and I saw them in concert last year, and they were just so good, and they remain so good. But it's like that is different. But I think what unites them is like, I think the way you interact with music is so different to eat, like is so individual, and I am so lyric driven. Like the thing that matters the most to me is the lyrics. So strong songwriting is super important to me, and it kind of cool or uncool.
I think it's a cool pick. I think in like maybe if you'd have picked it, if we'd have done this when we were all like 15, it wouldn't have been cool. But now it's like, oh yeah, like it's real, you know?
There's also going to be a lot of people
authentic.
jealous that you picked it, because I think she's nearly come up at least a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
From, like, a couple of like, and then ended up not being picked. But I think
it's been near misses because people who've wanted to pick her have been too stuck to pick a favorite album, and they're just like, can I just pick like 4? And it's like, no, sorry. The rules are the rules.
It's hard to talk about 4 albums. Like you really just you got to dive in.
Or people wanting to choose like a variety of songs or whatever. But I respect that you were able to just swoop in and grab grab a favorite. And it sounds like it was one that was like quite formative for you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, part of the thing about being a lyric-driven listener is I kind of channel my own thoughts about my life through the music. Like when I'm listening to it, it is directly reflecting the experiences that I have been through. And I think that's why Taylor is so popular still, because like it's kind of like ABBA. She has a song for every experience you could possibly go through in your life, which is like beneficial to me who like needs music to think, you know?
Specifically in this album, she has a song about trying to ruin someone else's wedding, which is wonderful.
I was literally just about to talk about that actually. Like this is one of the things that jumped out to me about like I'm not sure I'd clocked what like a storytelling writer she is. I don't know whether that's true of all her songs or if it's just something that's particularly big on this, but like nearly everyone is sort of telling a story, and like things like that. I was going to pick out that the wedding crashing song because it's like romantic melodrama, isn't it? But that you sort of relate to, not because presumably you've crashed a wedding. Presumably that's not that common, but you do because those emotions of like seeing somebody who you don't think they should be with this person, they should be with you. Like that's a pretty just universal emotion, and you just put it in this kind of strong, emotive, melodramatic kind of setting, and it kicks all that harder. But yeah, is that storytelling like? Is that just this album, or is that her thing?
I would say it's 100% the thing that like unites her songwriting throughout her career. I think it's so essential to country music. Like she talks about why she stayed in country, why she was drawn to country, and it is just always a storytelling medium. I don't know how much you both listen to country music, but going back 100 years, like it kind of started with murder ballads and like oral tales, folk music, and then it evolved through Nashville. But they're just all these like little tiny stories about people's lives that are so rich and full of emotion, like you were saying, Ronan. And I think even as she's moved into pop, like that storytelling is so foundational to her whole music career. And I also have like, do you guys know the story behind Speak Now, the wedding crashing song? Because it's
Did
a
she
fun
actually
one.
crash a wedding then? Is that...
No.
That'd be a really fun one.
How familiar are you guys with Paramore? Do you know, like, are you Paramore fans?
I love Paramore.
Yeah, know of them.
Yeah. So Hayley Williams was one of Taylor Swift's best friends when she was writing this album. And Hayley obviously dated Josh Harrow, who was another founding member of Paramore. And then they broke up, and Josh very quickly went on to get married. And Taylor wrote a song about Hayley turning up at Josh's wedding. From Hayley's perspective. Wow. It obviously didn't happen, but she was like, you should do this.
That's fantastic.
Which is just so Taylor.
I feel like it's not particularly good advice, though. Like, I don't think you should turn up at someone else's wedding and tell them that they're marrying the wrong person.
But like, what if they are, though? Like, would you not say something?
I guess.
Well, it's very presumptuous.
One of my favourite parts of that song is where she makes like a sly comment about basically like this wife to be uninvited her from the guest list, and she's like, oh, you know, how catty, as if she uninvited me. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, like I can sort of see why now.
That seems fair enough. You're willing to ruin her wedding.
Like, imagine though, like if one of your exes turned up at your wedding, like supposedly the happiest day of your life, and you're there trying to get married, and then your ex just stands up in the middle of the island, starts singing that you've chosen the wrong person. You'd just be like, fuck off.
I guess though,
get the fuck out of my way.
Do you know how much money we've spent on this? Like, fuck off.
I guess if it isn't the happiest day of your life though, and if she knows it, if it's like, actually no, you're making a big mistake, you're about to... That's the headspace you got to get into. It's throwing his life away, isn't he?
I think, yeah, but if he's in that position,
he's already committed financially.
Even if he doesn't, even if she's right, even if she's right and he is throwing his life away, he's not going to be there like, oh my god, thank you, you've really brought this to my attention.
I don't know. I've seen enough rom-coms to know that's exactly how it works.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. Yeah. You're running out the church together, and then you hop on the bus like The Graduate, and then you're like, have I done the right thing?
Long, awkward silence.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the whole album feels very rom-com-y, doesn't it, to be fair?
Yeah, a lot of it could be like a soundtrack sort of thing.
Yeah, it feels like a teenage girl's dreams way, like, you know, a kind of wistful romanticism.
I saw it, like she wrote once something about how like this album in particular, she kind of sees the songs as like diary entries. So that kind of does link into that kind of like teenage girls daydreams kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, there is a literal song about like a fairy tale meeting the enchanted, like seeing someone across the room and love you immediately, love at first sight. Yeah, there's something like silly and teenage and wonderful about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely sort of got that feeling. Like a common theme with some of these, like, we've had like a few sort of pop albums, I'd say, of this kind of like, sort of vaguely like within the kind of tradition that Taylor Swift has kind of carved out, and like a lot of them, I just think a common theme is that they do sort of make me feel like just a badass woman. I don't know whether that's just appropriating the culture, but it gets me into that headspace. It definitely does.
Yeah, that's so funny, Renan. Solidarity with teenage girls
100%.
everywhere through Taylor Swift.
I can definitely see the when you were speaking of like solidarity with teenage girls, and also like you mentioned Hayley Williams earlier. It was funny because when I was listening through it, I was like, this does feel very much kind of the same energy of a lot of music that was around at that era. And I was thinking of like Paramore and like maybe a little bit of like Fall Out Boy and stuff like that. Like it definitely kind of fits into that kind of angsty teenage emotion. Like it's all very like exaggerated. It's all stuff that like could probably be resolved by, you'd hope adults could resolve it a little bit simpler or easier, but there's a lot of this kind of like pettiness, and I think it's that kind of pettiness that like you like to revel in when you're feeling those similar emotions. There's a lot of focus on revenge on this album. Just taking it out on people.
But that's what I like, right? Because I feel what is good about it is it's honest, right? Like so many people feel that way, but having it put to words in such a quite like, it's a bit embarrassing to admit that you're like, you really hate the girl that your ex is now with, to the point where you're like slut shaming her. And you know, it feels very 2010 in the kind of willingness to admit, yeah, I'm gonna slut shame you right now. But it also feels like, God, every conversation in a sixth form common room between teenage girls, like the misogyny that can run around when people are angry is like almost worse sometimes than when it comes from men. But I think there is something just really real about that, because I think every teenage girl has felt that way, and it's nice to have it reflected in art.
It does feel like, because she, like you said, I think she was like, what, 18 when she was writing these songs, or like between 18 and 19 or something like that, right?
Yeah, 18 and 20.
I think these are very visceral, real things. And like you say, it's that kind of embarrassing side of things to admit kind of thing, but it's quite nice that Taylor's basically kind of opened up her like secret diary and then spilt the beans all over the song lyrics.
All over the shop. The beans are everywhere.
It probably does link back to a bit of what you're saying about why does it get sort of like, why do people turn their nose up at it, or like why do parts of like musical press, I guess, like turn their noses up at it. And like I'm thinking like, I don't know, the enemies of the world and stuff like that. I don't know how they review Taylor Swift, but I can just picture them and the people that read them. And it probably is just this quite gendered kind of thing, because the number of really quite like wet sad boy bands that are out there that get a lot of like love, you know, or even like a perfect example of this is like an equivalent for middle-aged kind of men would be The National, who I think are great, fantastic.
Which have a really close relationship to Taylor now.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, was it Aaron Dessner? Like one of the main musical sort of force behind National. And those albums that he did with Taylor were really warmly received by all the traditional musical press. Suddenly this like flocking of love came in for Taylor Swift, and it's just that it's almost like it not just about the music, but just about having a signifier for you're within the right crowd now, you know? You've made an indie folk album, you know?
Yeah, because Pitchfork, I think in the last 2 years, went back and re-reviewed her albums because of how much backlash was growing for exactly this reason, right? That she's not respected by the like traditional cool indie press, and they bumped all her ratings up.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah, in the wake of that national relationship kind of growing. So it's interesting that you say that. Like, I think it is changing over time.
It's because like when people talk about that music press or music nerds, they're often talking about men, basically, and certain kinds of men. Often, I don't know. It's just it is interesting what it kind of reveals.
Definitely a crowd that's like quick to dismiss, like these country albums and like pop albums from Taylor are like they can be quite mainstream, quite radio friendly, and I think certain music nerds are quite quick to dismiss anything that like, oh, it's made for radio plays and radio hits as being like,
yeah, they just like stuff that imitates radio hits from 30 years ago.
But they're like, oh, it's not real art, it's just basic poppy rhythms or whatever. And then also I think on top of that there's definitely an element of particularly for like male listeners, like they're like, well, Taylor Swift's music's not for me, it's for girls, and then they just dismiss it as a whole. And I think that's probably a reason why I've not really deep dived her music as much, is because it doesn't necessarily like hit the same way for me it does for other people. But I think some people quickly jump to just being like, I dislike Taylor because she's popular and for girls. And it's like, no, she's popular for a very good reason, because she like hits on a lot of like you were saying, Anna, like hits on these kind of very emotionally resonant themes, even when they're kind of like simpler, like more kind of like teenage, like angsty ones. Like you still need people who can like hit on them so well with like their songwriting and storytelling.
Yeah, I think what's amazing about Taylor is she's always writing from her current perspective. So like, given that she's had a career since she was like 15 years old.
Bloody hell.
And now she's 33. She's written from every different perspective. So Speak Now really speaks to the angsty experience of being a teenager. But like, her most recent album included stuff about like possible miscarriages and like the complexity that comes with adult relationships. And I feel like her fandom grows with her. And as she evolves, we evolve together. There's quite like a reciprocal relationship in the Taylor Swift fandom. It's almost akin to like a religion or a faith, It's the only way to.
You're dangerously edging around the word cult there.
I mean, well, God, yeah. I mean, I do feel sometimes like I'm in QAnon, like the level of conspiracy theories that I'm engaging with. I do with my Swift friends. I'm like, are we crazy?
Do you refer to yourselves as Swifties?
I'm definitely.
You use the word.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you trying to get tickets at the minute?
Oh my God, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you.
I've signed up like enlisted to help you try and get live show tickets.
So I've signed up for 20 cities with 2 accounts. So that's 40 opportunities. And then my mom's like, my brother's on it.
Yeah.
My friend's on it. So, it's like an operation.
Everyone I know who is a Swiftie is like has like a full legion of people help. I'm helping somebody trying to get tickets as well. Like,
it's really good of you.
Everyone's just Ronan, have you been roped in to try and get
I haven't yet. No. It's, I don't know whether I could sign up to 20 cities. That really is.
You're just like too low key, Ronan. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Well,
you're
I'm
too low
key enough to organise my birthday, so.
Yeah.
It was funny though, because like I asked my colleague who sits opposite me at work, I was like, just offhandedly, because I've been thinking about Taylor Swift all day for this, obviously. I was just like, oh, Liz, are you into Taylor Swift? And she's like, yes, why? You're trying to get tickets. It's just like, no, not right now.
Everyone's on their guard.
It was running. I was just like, I feel like the odds are, if you ask like women of a certain age if they're into Taylor Swift, the answer is most of the time, yes.
Yeah, she has that universal appeal.
When you say like her music's kind of evolved, then was her earlier stuff before this quite like a lot more innocent, I guess? Like, does it feel more childish if you go back to it, or does it still kind of stand up to re-listens?
So I think what stands up is she is a lyrical talent. like her storytelling, even as a pretty young teenager, has been just phenomenal. But yes, like it does feel even, so this is kind of the world of maybe like the beginning of university. Obviously she didn't go to university, but like, you know, when you're starting to become an adult and have a bit more autonomy, whereas like her previous albums were very firmly like in high school,
Right. Yeah.
in the classroom, like at football games. The setting is very juvenile. Even when her writing doesn't, it feels older somehow.
You can still revisit it, and it's not too like, oh, this is way beyond me now.
No, I feel like it really stands up the test of time. Like her whole discography, to me, is timeless, truly timeless. She has that kind of storytelling talent.
Does it feel like she's gotten better though over the years, or is it like
yes and no?
Okay.
So I think what I really like about her younger stuff, lyrics like "You made a rebel out of a careless man's careful daughter." Like there's just so much wrapped into that like one line that is just so wonderful and layered. What I think she's improved on is like collaborating with people and like bringing new ideas into her work, which I think has built out her sound in a really interesting way. But the storytelling runs through.
Speaking of collaboration, really quick, I spotted a little fact. I don't know if this has like affected the reason why you've chosen this album, but you know how she's been re-recording certain albums because like and then making like the Taylor Swift version. So we've obviously all just listened to the original version, but by the time this comes out, hopefully on Monday, on that same day, she's going to be, I think she's scheduled to release the Taylor Swift version of this album.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's re-recording this full, which is like quite. I hope no one like stumbles across this episode thinking that we've done like a pre-release listen to the new version. But she's actually going to be, because we mentioned Hayley Williams a couple of times earlier, she's going to be collabing with Hayley Williams on it apparently. So there's going to be some
and Fall Out
Boy. So did that like, has that weighed in on your decision, or was that just kind of like a fun coincidence anyway that she's doing these re-releases?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a fun coincidence, the timing of this, because this was my first favorite album, as I say, so it's kind of just in the ether right now, which is great. But I do think it's done kind of interesting things to her like career, right? Like the idea of looking back on your career at a relatively young age is quite unusual, especially at like the height of your fame. And I think it has triggered this like massive increase in her fandom. Like she is somehow even more famous than she's ever been. Like 20 years into her career almost, which is a crazy trajectory. And I think it is because like a whole new generation of teens has been introduced to her old music about the time of their life that they're in now. Yeah. And it's just like rapidly expanding her fan base. And it's really interesting. But then I also think it is affecting the music she's making now. Like if you're looking at Midnights, it does feel a little bit backwards looking and a bit echoing of her previous albums. And she's not really innovating in the same way. So I think it is doing interesting things to her career as a project.
The fact that she's had to revisit so many of the old projects probably been, even if it's subconsciously like affecting is it like the aesthetic, or is it like her actual like vocal performances that feel like they're kind of harkening back to the older stuff?
I feel like it's a production aesthetic, but then it is also, funnily enough, like a lyrical aesthetic. So for example, she wrote this song on Midnights called Woulda Coulda Shoulda, which was on the 3 a.m. deluxe release, and it's reflecting at the age of 32 on her relationship with John Mayer, who was 32 when he dated her at the age of 19.
Oh.
So
that's a bad miss.
I
did not. Our mate Angus loves John Mayer. We should put that one to him.
Is that
so
is he who is it Dear John? Is that the one that's about being manipulated?
Yeah.
Is that who that's about?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's about John Mayer.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I know this isn't a
the
scoop,
gossip behind
but
this album.
I feel like we've just made a scoop anyway. I think
a
for us it's
revelation.
the feeling of This is why we need your insider knowledge.
It's that association with, because like I just know John Mayer, like you say, Ronan. Our mate Angus is just like, I think he's obsessed is probably a safe word to use for that relationship. And now it's like this earth-shattering revelation that this probably isn't very nice. But maybe
Oh my
are we allowed to
God.
say that? I don't know. Is that
Is that libel?
What libel is to
Libel.
say someone's not
Slander.
very nice.
But it is interesting
Yeah,
to know
slander.
that that's who that's about. Also, that's really weird. Is that? I don't think that is slander to say that a 32-year-old dating a 19-year-old is really weird.
Yeah, and the relationship, I think it's fascinating to hear her reflect on it at the age that he was at and think just how wrong it was. And she kind of does it through this prism of like losing faith or losing your religion. And you know, she was part of the Disney 2000s. I don't know if you guys were like interacted with this as kids, but like there was a point where every Disney star was wearing a purity ring and like
No, I didn't realize
committing
that.
to never having sex before marriage.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. So she was part of that whole cohort. Like Miley Cyrus, Selena Gomez, like all of them wore purity rings. It was like the Disney thing. And like she
was
came
that
from that
Disney
world.
mandated? Or was that like
It feels like I have to say like probably.
that's strange?
I could picture that being as much as anything else a marketing decision, because so much of America, surely, you know, if you're just like marketing to the Midwest and Deep South and just anywhere that's not the coasts, presumably that flies pretty well with parents. You know, that's probably like a certain
All our female role models are like pure role models.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And the idea of like losing that faith for this man who was so much older and should have known better and stuff is she talking about him taking her girlhood away from her, like that kind of loss of faith and innocence is really interesting.
I mean, that's even more messed up because he must have essentially known that he was slowly playing a role, and like whatever you think of the religion and all that kind of stuff, you sort of don't want to be the person that's actively breaking somebody's faith in order to sleep with them when there's a decade age gap and they're 19 years old. You know, like it's like just everything about it gets worse and worse.
It's over a decade. That's the thing. I think even without the religion, it's like you should not be that guy or woman in the situation.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's saying to him, right? In Dear John, she's saying, don't you think I was too young to be messed with this like this? You know, and
it's super
the way she wrote the
interesting
song.
that she had the but you're saying like she's also addressing it in Midnights more recently. So she's had this she addressed it directly when she was kind of around that age to be like, look, this was messed up, and now she's returned to it to double down on it.
Yeah. Which I think is a product of the re-recordings, right? Because she was re-recording Speak Now at age 32, which is how old he was when they dated.
Oh, yeah.
So it does feel
Very
like
fresh,
echoing. Yeah, exactly. And just going back to Dear John, like the structure of the song is fascinating. It's like full of these guitar riffs. I don't know if you noticed, like the steel guitar that's like kind of whining. That's like John Mayer's classic. So she's kind of echoing his calling card back to him.
That's smart, yeah.
And I would say improving on it, but I'm biased.
Was it at the time, was it apparent who was it about? Or is it just kind of more recently it's been kind of revealed?
It's called Dear John.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, when it started, before the lyrics like kicked off, and I saw that it was called Dear John, I was like, oh, this is just going to be a song about like Dear John letters. Like, you know, the letter you write, you know, your husband's gone off to war and you've cheated on him, so you write them a Dear John letter. And I was like, oh, because I was like, that fits in with this kind of like weird little, some of these petty revenge narratives that are going on, or whatever, like heartbreak narratives. And then it was just like, oh no, this is really like real. This is like one of the real songs on the album.
Yeah, it's that double entendre, right? Like it is that song that you write to someone who, to break something off, but it's also Dear John, fuck you.
You're a creep.
Love Taylor. Which I love. And even like, I don't know if you have time, you should watch videos of her performing it at the Speak Now tour. And she is angry. She is, you know, she really was feeling that song at that time. Like she's full of the emotion of it.
I often think that when like an artist has a song that it's something we kind of talked about when we of all the bands to compare to, but when we talked about Slipknot is when an artist writes a song from like a really honest, vulnerable place and like they record it and they perform it for like that moment and it has these really strong emotional ties. I just think that must be so difficult to then almost like, you have
to relive,
do a pantomime of it and relive it every single time you do like a live show. And I imagine the first couple of times is really hard, or maybe it's hard every single time, or maybe sometimes you just close yourself off to it. So I guess, yeah, if Taylor was performing it live and looking angry, but like, I wonder, like, was she angry every single time she revisits it? And I guess probably, yeah. And that's the reason why it's coming back up again in Midnights.
Yeah, I think this is all speculation, right? Because who's to say what's in Taylor's mind? But we spend, as when I say we, I mean like Swifties, spend a long time like watching videos of her perform and like, trying to gauge like what's going on with her.
Her gestures and her like micro movements and stuff, right?
You're joking, but I'm serious. Like, yes, actually, yes.
It's why you feel like you're in QAnon.
Yes, exactly. Like it's very obsessive and detail orientated fandom. It feels like too much.
Is it just a group of people trying to figure out who's hurt Taylor most recently?
Yeah, and just like
all coded.
Exactly. So she's obviously on the Eras tour right now, and the concept of the Eras tour is like looking back through her career and performing all these old songs, and the emotion that's so clear on her face now. It does feel like, I don't know how much you follow Taylor's personal life, but she's obviously going through a pretty devastating breakup. And like,
who's she breaking up with now?
She broke up with her boyfriend or they had a breakup. Who knows who broke up with who? But like, they had been together for 7 years.
Ooh, wow.
This was the guy, and she released a song saying, "I wouldn't marry me either." It was like they were going to be together forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
was that a famous person, or was that?
He's a British actor.
Fair, yeah.
I wouldn't call him famous. If you watch Conversations with Friends, he was the main guy in that.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
The new Sally Rooney. Yeah. Watching her perform songs like Last Kiss, which, by the way, all-time breakup song forever and ever and ever. But like, tears in her eyes when she's performing that 13 years later.
Yeah.
Because it feels like these songs take on new emotional meanings through the years for us all, and including Taylor.
I do feel like Taylor's had a rough emotional ride of it. It always feels like her heart is getting broken, and then she's always like, even in this album, like from all this time ago, and she's already talking about like mine is the whole thing is like, yeah, I keep getting hurt, but I keep hoping, and now it's all these years later, and it's like, oh. I'm sorry that it doesn't work out for you ever, seemingly.
I was gonna.
Maybe one day.
I'm kind of glad you said that, because I was gonna say something slightly more optimistic for Taylor. So we've got a good counterbalance there. I was gonna say like being such a loved pop star, essentially, with such a loyal fan base and community, must be quite a unique experience of community. Like, and like, I know sometimes people make it out like it's purely like one-sided, parasocial, it's the fans, but I reckon I could very much see it not being that. Like, for example, with Taylor in these situations, being able to sort of share these things with their fans and work through it, it is almost like quasi-religious. It's like having your church community, which you kind of share these deep crises with. Like I was thinking of like Nick Cave, like since his son has died, or now his two sons have died, he's apparently just been doing these incredibly open live sets where he'll sing songs, but then he will just take questions from the audience, just talk, like freeballing basically, and just it's almost like, you would say like a big therapy session, but it's more communal than that. So it is essentially like a quasi-religious, like the preacher that also speaks directly to the audience and individuals in the audience, rather than just preaching at an audience. It's a fascinating phenomenon, and presumably quite unique
Yeah.
to have it on this scale.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about Taylor is just how unusual her relationship is with her fans. Like, it does feel reciprocal in a way that I haven't seen in any other pop star. Like, for example, she has these sessions before she releases an album where she invites fans into her home to listen to it for the first time with her. And she chooses those fans herself. And she like has active social media accounts where she engages with people, especially on Tumblr. She's very active on
Tumblr's still
Tumblr.
going.
She, you know, yeah, for the Swifties.
Just for the Swifties.
They're the only people on the website.
Yeah, Swifties, that's all that's
Amazing.
left on Tumblr.
Wow.
Just me and Taylor Swift. Yeah, she's very, and like I don't know if she still does this, but she definitely did through her 20s. She would like send personalized Christmas gift that she would wrap herself to her like most dedicated fans. So it is very much like a
How do you earn a spot as most dedicated fan?
by having an extremely obsessive online presence, which like I always thought was a little bit, and this is my internalized misogyny speaking, I guess, but like a little bit cringe to be that public about your adoration for her. And now I regret it because I really wish I had
Missed the
like,
boat.
you know, yeah, like
You could have been
show
at those
Taylor how
pre-release
much.
parties.
Exactly. I should have, because I was following it just as devotedly. I just wasn't like public about it, you know?
I feel like you'd be more the kind of fan that, like, if I was in Taylor's position, though, I'd want to invite. I'd rather invite like the ones who are like really like a big supporter, but aren't a freak. It's like, not that came out really mean. I just mean like the ones who aren't. You know, you wouldn't be a little bit worried that they might try
Kill
and
you.
murder you or something. Yeah, like when someone's a little bit too obsessive, it's like you do run that kind of
walks the
risk
line,
of
doesn't it?
tipping the
Yeah.
balance of like you've said one wrong thing and now their adoration has turned into like this despising hate. I guess I don't know. You see it happen quite often.
It's definitely
Yeah,
enough.
it's happened
Like,
before.
I mean, like, there's a whole assassination of Jesse James. There's a whole film about like Robert Ford, his killer, and just about that. Like, the whole film is just a very long, drawn out exploration of that, walking the line between, you know, like
obsession.
admiring him, wanting to be him, wanting to kill him. You know, like just yeah, all of those kind of emotions. Fantastic film, actually. Like, really deals with that kind of birth of celebrity culture pretty well.
I assume you've never wanted to be or kill Taylor Swift, Anna. I hope.
Just get it out now if you have. It's a safe space.
Can we clarify
Oh,
on the
yeah.
record that
My deep admission. No, it's so funny. I never want to meet her.
yeah,
I've talked about this with people before, but like this concept of a punisher, you know, a fan that loves you too much and therefore it's like a really punishing experience to meet them. Like, I've invested too much emotional energy in Taylor for her to be a real person to me, you know, which is like a very alienating aspect of fandom where you cease to exist in like a very like grounded, embodied, real way.
Is there an element of like, if you met her and you were just like, oh, she's a human woman, would it be disappointing? Is that...
I guess it's just like there's a Taylor who lives in my head, you know?
Yeah.
And that must be such a strange concept for a person to like, you know, exist in people's heads across the world, millions and millions of people who are that like obsessed with you. That I can't imagine what it must be like to be her.
I guess like most people will experience that on some small level where a friend or partner or family member or some kind of relationship, somebody has a version of you in their head that doesn't line up with. That's like, you know, a common reason for why a lot of relationships like break down is because like one person had a different idea of who they were with than the reality of it, and whether that caused something to go wrong because the real version clashed or the other person felt too much pressure to live up to this version of someone else. But yeah, it's definitely like, this must be such a bizarre thing to kind of grasp with, like for any famous celebrity, I guess, is that you, like you say, you're kind of living this version of you that isn't you, this perfected version of you that's just like all the wonderful things you've ever done combined, and also a load of wonderful things that you haven't done but have just been kind of like stitched onto you as this like imaginary figure. and then multiply that like you say across the globe, millions and millions of people. That's quite a daunting concept of celebrity. I feel. I imagine that must provide some kind of like emotional stress for
Oh my
Taylor
God.
in her position.
100%. Like, she talks about this really interestingly in the Miss Americana documentary on Netflix, which is it was made in the wake of the Kanye scandal, which we haven't talked about yet, but we probably should. She talks about like how much her life was destroyed by everyone turning on her because she'd gotten so much identity and meaning in that validation from everyone, that when it was withdrawn from her and she became a hated figure, she didn't know how to exist. And that is such a scary concept.
That's interesting.
That you exist entirely for other
everybody
people.
Turn on Taylor? I always thought that incident reflected most badly on Kanye. I don't know, because it was that Kanye said something on the lines of like, I made you, or like I'm responsible for you, right? It was like some really odd claim.
I made that bitch famous.
Yeah. Surely that was him that that didn't come out great in that.
So, taking you back to 2016, I think it was. The whole thing, it started when Taylor won the Grammy for 1989, Record of the Year, or Album of the Year? Album of the Year for 1989. And she got on stage and she called him out for calling her a bitch. And then Kim Kardashian released footage of her saying that she was fine with it, and that she'd agreed to it, and that she was kind of making herself a victim again with Kanye. And then it later came out that Kim had edited the footage and that Taylor had been telling the truth, but everyone just called her, I think there's also like a liar and, manipulator, and there was like a big Taylor Swift is over party, like hashtag trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I think it's something about like,
Twitter lover insert person is over party without any of the actual context of the situation.
Exactly. I think there's something about like she'd been like the public good girl for too long, and people felt like they had to tear her down.
Yeah. Plus, especially if it can fit into a neat kind of like vaguely anti-feminist backlash, which is sort of does, it fits into a kind of like, I think equality's gone too far. You know. It's sort of neatly into that category of backlash, which is never gonna go well on the internet.
Also, that classic goody two shoes. Everyone wants to see a goody two shoes kind of face the music
exactly
for something or other, any excuse really. And like say Taylor became a bit of like a golden girl for a while, probably linked a little bit to how like her earlier career is very kind of like pure and clean and stuff like that. Like there isn't many like sexual references in her earlier discography for definite. And obviously everyone loving her and then having this massive following of young teenage girls. I'm sure there was just this massive contingent of Yeezy heads who were just baying for blood. It's like, oh no, she can't
Have they given
be
up
perfect.
now since the anti-Semitism stuff? Were they really still clinging on?
No, they probably think that he's like based and like speaking the truth or some shit. There'll definitely be tons of people on Twitter with blue check marks next to their names who still fully subscribe to the Kanye West train. I think I saw like a screenshot or something where it was like name Yeezy, describe Kanye West in one word, and loads of people were still putting like genius, misunderstood, etc. So like, I think he's still got a pretty strong following from people who just don't want to accept the reality of the situation.
It's fascinating to see how much his career has changed, right? Because there are still the fans that are super dedicated, but he is gone from the like zeitgeist, the mainstream culture, the appreciation by the press. Like he has destroyed what was a really decorated career, and Taylor only seems to rise. So it is kind of a fascinating like reversal of fate.
All came good in the end, I guess.
Don't cross Taylor.
Don't cross Taylor or you'll out yourself as an anti-Semite.
Yeah, only the fascists hate Taylor.
Isn't there like a song on this album that addresses like the original Kanye West drama?
The original beef, yeah. It's actually probably my only skip on the album, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. It's called Innocent. It just seems to have aged really badly, that one. Like the forgiveness of it all, and it feels a little bit like condescending to me, but
What was the original beef? Just for context, because I don't really get. So like, what was his claim, for example, to having made her famous?
so she won the VMA Best Music Video of the Year award for the classic "You Belong with Me," where she's like both the mean girl cheerleader and the girl in the band who fancies the, like, you know, Bane American football quarterback guy.
Sure, yeah.
So she got on stage to receive that award, and Kanye got up on stage with her and took the microphone from her and was like, "You shouldn't have won this. Beyonce should have won this for Single Ladies," which is, to be fair, probably one of the most classic music videos ever. But publicly humiliating an 18-year-old girl.
Yeah, not great.
Not good luck.
Yeah. And then like Obama called him a jackass, and it became this like whole
Amazing
media moment.
Mm.
And that was the original beef.
Right.
And she wrote Innocent saying like, "I forgive you for that."
Yeah.
And then she was too pure, and then they wanted to bring her down.
Yeah, it wasn't enough.
So Innocent's the only skip. Everything else is a certified banger for you.
Yeah. It's banger after banger.
But emotional banger after emotional banger. So like you saying, you get to Last Kiss and you're just crying, I assume.
I mean, oh, God, look, next time you're going through a horrific breakup, just like take my advice and listen to that song, and you will
Return to this album.
That song specifically. There's just, so I actually think when talking about Taylor, you have to talk about bridges, like the musical concept of the bridge, which is like foundational to Taylor Swift songwriting and also her fandom. Like, we're all obsessed with her bridges. They're like whole playlists dedicated to her best bridges and stuff. And this one, the bridge is, "I watch your life in pictures like I used to watch you sleep." Like, there's just something in that image of like, we've all been in a place where we're like on social media stalking your ex, like, or maybe just I have, but like watching someone who's like every day you were a part of, like, have this whole nother life without you. Like, that is so just the social media age, like, breakup. I just feel that so much.
Yeah, that's actually like ahead of the curve, really, for 2010. You know what I mean? Like
It's just like precise emotional songwriting, you know?
Yeah.
And she was a big MySpace girl. So she was like, she was there.
Makes sense.
On the socials, interacting.
We would usually ask people like, "Oh, do you have any like stories that you can tell us that the album takes you back to?" But I don't know if that's like too personal a question to ask. If like this is the kind of album that takes people back to their like most emotionally traumatic breakups. You're like, "Oh, do you want to tell us a fun story about the time that guy broke your heart?" No, not really.
I do have like I have a different story for that one. The song Never Grow Up, which is about like a kid and then a young adult thinking about how life changes once you like leave the family unit and you go off on your own. And I just remember being 13 and listening to that song and being like so afraid of growing up. Like, I was always so afraid of like leaving school. I loved school so much. I loved learning. And I was really afraid of like what would come after. And I really like cherished my childhood. So I really remember being young and really feeling that song like, God, everything is going to change one day and I'm not ready for it.
So did that song just scare you even more?
I feel like as an adult having grown up, I think adulthood has been better than I expected. So
Yeah, it's all right. Really.
It's been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, like personal autonomy is quite nice, actually.
Apart from the achy knees and the climbing injuries, it's it's all pretty good. All pretty cushy.
It has its perks. It definitely does. But I just remember being that tween.
Do you remember how you like discovered Taylor Swift? Was it through your own off your own back, or did somebody show you her?
So again, this is gonna be like so of the moment. So when I was a kid, I was big into Disney, like I say, and every Sunday night there was this thing called Radio Disney Top 100, where like the tween bops would play, and we would listen to it as we were having Sunday night dinner, and Taylor was always on that chart. So yeah, it was like good old fashioned Apple Music radio back in the day, iTunes Radio. And she was in the Hannah Montana movie, which was like, yeah, big for me.
You were indoctrinated by the Disney Corporation.
Oh my God.
Basically.
They had my soul. To be honest, they still have my soul. Like, I think they have all of our souls.
Can I make like a really rogue recommendation while we're just on the topic of Disney?
Yeah.
I assume you watched like the Disney Channel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So you know the Disney Channel theme, you know that bit where someone draws like the Mickey Mouse ears with like a magic wand?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's like a little bit of music that plays.
Yeah.
And it turned out that like no one knew who made that. And there's this incredible 1 hour and a half YouTube documentary where this guy who usually digs into like theme park, like Disney theme park mysteries, just spends like this full like documentary length video deep diving into trying to find and credit the person who made that theme that's like so synonymous with people's childhoods, and it's one of the best videos I've ever watched. So like
Incredible.
that is well worth a visit.
Yeah, drop me the link. I will watch that so fucking quickly. I'm ready.
You can put that in the episode description as well, Louis. That seems
Yeah, put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Show notes. Oh, we should start referring
show
to
notes.
show notes.
That does sound good. I like the sound of that.
Episode description sounds so YouTuber, and we're not YouTuber. We're
podcasters.
Podcasters. It's in the show notes. It's down in the show notes along with the timestamps and the links to our socials. That's how.
It's calling them socials as well. That sounds professional. It's not social media. It's the socials.
This one's going to be such a professional one as well, because like obviously with the re-release of the Taylor Swift version, we're going to be hitting all the
honestly,
SEOs.
Yeah.
You know,
what are SEOs?
Like,
yeah, you're welcome.
we're going to come up in those algorithms. Thank you so much, Anna. I mean, I'm going to hold you personally responsible if this episode bombs. So it goes both ways.
It's on my shoulders. I'm ready to take it.
You just go around and share it to everybody you meet for the next time you're there doing like meet and greets and socializing for work. Next Pride Parade, you can also be like, I was on a podcast.
Listen to my podcast.
Listen to my podcast episodes. I've done the Swifties proud. I feel like you have done the Swifties proud because you've really come on with like, I feel like you have, I don't know if have you got notes in front of you, because it feels like you've just been
spitting mad facts.
Yeah.
You guys, you didn't even know what you were doing when you invited me on to talk about Taylor Swift. I never talk about Taylor Swift, but I think about her always. So I just have a lot to say to get off my chest.
Occupying some kind of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I need like a proper Swiftie friend to like dissect this with, because sometimes I do feel like I'm insane. My poor girlfriend has to put up with so much of my conspiracy theory bullshit.
She is very patient.
Is she into it as well?
She's patient. She's not, I wouldn't say that she's a fan in the way that, you know, you're like, she's an ambient fan, but she's not a Swiftie. Yeah.
Ambient fan is also a great term. That is fantastic. That's that needs to is that already in the common lexicon? I don't think I've ever heard that before, but that's brilliant. I'm gonna start.
I don't think so, but you're welcome.
Yeah, claim it.
That one's free.
Yeah. I'm gonna start using it.
You still put this album on like semi-regularly, or is this kind of like it's a favorite from my backlog, but I don't like? Do you revisit for nostalgia, or do you still like have some of the songs on like playlists and stuff?
So I think Taylor's process of re-recording has really made me look back much more than I did. And it's been on a loop for like a year at this point. Like all of her old stuff has. It's on the playlists, especially like I've been through breakups in the past year, and yeah, it was strongly present in those breakup playlists.
Would you use it for things other than breakup playlists, like out of interest, or is this exclusively for those moments?
She's very much like my transit music. Like if I'm on a plane, I'm listening to Taylor, or like if I need to feel like hopeful and wistful, I'll listen to like Long Live. Makes me feel so hopeful every single time I listen to it, because it's like looking forward. It's we're doing this together. It's also like such an important song for the fan base, because it's like our song with her, you know, where she's like talking to us directly, which I say us, but yes.
Is that as in how it was intended, or does it seem like how it was intended, or is that how it's since become adopted?
Well, it was intended to be like a love letter to her fans, and also a reflection on the experience of performing to huge crowds all the time, and like how she'd been working so hard to get to that moment, and when she arrived she wanted to really relish it, I guess. But since it's been 13 years, and it's become like a bit of a tour classic, where like she'll play the surprise songs where she like rotates songs from her old discography into her new sets. And if you get Long Live at your show, everyone's like so angry at you online. It's like you won the lottery of Taylor Swift if you see her perform Long Live, you know?
Have you seen her live like ever? Or is this like a lifelong goal?
It's a lifelong goal. It's a lifelong goal. I've never seen her, which breaks my heart because I really wish I'd seen her when it cost like £17 to see her like down in Shepherd Bush Empire or whatever. And now she's like selling out 5 nights at Wembley in 2 seconds. Like it's going to be like anarchy.
I have a feeling she's going to be the kind of artist to tour for a long time though.
Yeah.
I think she's going to be like an Elton John type, where her final send-off will be when she can barely walk, you know? And she's like, I'm doing one last massive tour around the world. It's like, okay.
Bitch, I'm going to be there. Yeah. I'm going to be there on my walkers in her frame. I'm going to be... I do think about this sometimes, like, what if she died? This is such a horrible thing to say, but like, I would be beyond heartbroken. I want to be seeing her when I'm like 70 years old, you know?
Well, long live Taylor Swift then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Long live. Thank you.
I mean, I think that's like a fairly nice note to wrap up on, unless either of you have any more like thoughts on the album that you wanted to share.
I don't think so. Happy to move on to the quiz if you guys are, or top songs. Have we done top songs?
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about, Anna? Or do you feel happy? I mean, I feel like you'll finish and be like, oh, we didn't mention this and that and the other, but
I mean, I think there's just so much to say about Taylor that I feel like that was a good rounded conversation, you know?
Yeah.
It covered the bases.
We've done the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it is like, intro 101 Taylor Swift.
I do have a suspicion that like we might get multiple Taylor Swift albums like done on this podcast if we keep this going for long enough, and if we invite people back on who've already been on and not picked Taylor their first time, I have a suspicion that at some point we may end up covering maybe even the entirety of the Taylor Swift catalogue. But you know,
that would be so fun. I can't wait to listen to all those episodes. I
mean, you'd be more than welcome to come back again, and if you wanted Taylor Swift again,
more Taylor. Taylor always.
Top 3 songs if you had to pick
on the album.
Yeah.
You can pick really one or two bonuses from other albums that have, you know, like further reading.
Okay, so the first one I'm gonna pick is Sparks Fly, because there's just something about drop everything now, meet me in the pouring rain, like that kind of urgency, the like massive feeling behind it, that big love. Like I feel like that kind of taught me how to love in a way, you know? I love in the way that Taylor Swift loves, like massively, like a rom-com, like a movie, you know? So I feel like that's definitely on there. Definitely Last Kiss, because I think it is one of her saddest songs, and sometimes you just need to feel like devastated, and that's a really good soundtrack to that emotion. And then Back to December, I think, because there is something really wonderful about that, like honesty of regret, which I really resonate with. We will feel regretful sometimes.
I was actually going to pick Back to December as one of mine, actually. I think it was maybe like the first one that I really I really sort of, what's the word, like locked into that sort of storytelling style, with that kind of opening about setting up this context of a slightly awkward, small talk heavy conversation, and then the sort of reveal as it goes into the bridge of the chorus of why that is. It's simple, but just a very effective kind of sort of storytelling touch, and just executed brilliantly. I liked all those kind of like, I think it was like the country ones as well. I think at the same time I was kind of going through that realization, because I remember like I'd heard or read, or you told me ages ago that like she had that kind of country background. I think I'd kind of completely forgotten about that, and it was as it got into some of these slower songs that I was like, oh yeah, she really does have like this kind of country sound. So there's quite a few of those that I was enjoying, like Speak Now as well, which we've already talked about. Just for that, that brilliant wedding crashing melodrama. And there's also like I don't know how you describe it, but the way that she goes into the saying "speak now" at the end of the chorus, like, I don't know enough like musically to say exactly what it is, but it's almost like the chorus resolves into the verse with that final line of "speak now," like which is just really effective. Just sounds amazing and makes it sort of hit. And also, I picked "Mean," just also kind of very kind of country kind of vibes, and got a little bit of that sort of like, you know, a little bit of everything, a bit of that sort of hopeful looking to the future, a bit of that sort of bitter, fuck you, you're a loser anyway. You know, or just all of those things kind of rolled into one. Just quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, I feel like Mean really has that country twang to it. There's kind of like, fuck you, you've been left behind in a tiny little village, and I'm off to the big city. And it's that kind of like glamorization of like big city life, meaning that you've achieved and you've moved on. I do like that. I think that you get that theme quite a lot in that genre. I mean, I might be wrong, but I wanted to pick. Well, when you were like "Speak Now," I was gonna pick "Speak Now," and I was like, well, since he's picked "Speak Now," I'll go for "Mean," and then you went for "Mean" as well. So both of those. But I also like "Mine" because I like that it's this kind of like more hopeful kind of approach to romance, and I think it just has that really. I think a lot of the rest of the album kind of touches on some of the darker moments in relationships, breakups, and manipulation, and just sometimes people being horrible or things not working out or whatever. But "Mine" just is that kind of, I don't know, it worked out and it's nice, and like especially the bit, I think it's towards the end of the song where it talks about having run out and expecting things to end, and then the person in the story is like, no, even though we've, you know, just had this massive falling out or whatever, we're sticking it out, and that being just kind of this like magic moment. I just thought that was just a really nice romantic song. And I also wanted to go with "The Story of Us" almost for the kind of flip side of that, because that's a lot more of kind of a sad end to a relationship. So I think you do get like the full spectrum of it, and they're both like equally effective, I think. So yeah, I think those two are two of my favorites, and then also I'll go with "Speak Now," even though Ronan's already picked it, just because I just found it funny, like the whole way through, basically.
It's brilliant. I've also got to give a shout out to the line in that of like, which actually just made me like, you know, when you smirk out loud to a song. I think it's along the lines of like her dress that looks like a pastry.
Yeah. I
It's
love
just
that
such
one.
a catty comment.
It's so visual, like you can see it in your head.
Oh yeah, it is. It's precise. It's fantastic.
I also, a bit rogue, but Ronan, you mentioned that Anna was allowed to pick extra listening, but I have a rogue Taylor Swift extra listening song, which neither of you might not have listened to, but it's Anti-Hero, but it's the Girl Talk remix. I don't think it's like on Spotify or anything, but it's on YouTube. It's just such a good remix. So that's my
amazing. Okay.
Link that as well.
Extra listening. Yeah, that's down in the show notes.
So wait, do I have to pick another song from Taylor's?
You don't have to. It's
you don't have to, but if there are any that jump to mind that you think, or like any album that would be a great sort of launching pads after this, just anything, if anything jumps to mind, you can pick stuff out.
So given that we've talked so much about her storytelling, I think I would be remiss not to point you to "All Too Well," which is like every single Taylor Swift fan's favorite song. It just kind of like perfectly showcases her writing ability and her ability to like, it tells the whole story of a relationship from the beginning to the end. And there's just something really wonderful about, and there's like a motif of a scarf that runs through. Like, it is a really magical piece of writing. So I really recommend that. It's on Red. And then she did a 10-minute version for the re-release. But I would push you to the first one. Just like really sit in the emotion of that. It's my rec.
Amazing.
All Too Well, Taylor Swift.
Have you managed to put a quiz together?
I've got a quiz. I have a brief Swift themed quiz.
Incredible.
Okay. It's like Swift adjacent.
It's time for the quiz. Do 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 do. Do do.
I wanted to introduce like another like I'm trying
Getting
to like
funkier.
yeah.
I'm gonna have to start layering this like actually professionally in Audacity to make it sound like a real tune.
Yeah, because I'm not
rather
sure
than
I was
just
doing it
making
really
mouth
in time
noises.
with your bum. But,
We'll keep it raw and real.
Okay. Question number 1. A modest proposal, an ironic essay by the writer Jonathan Swift, suggested impoverished Irish people sell what as food to wealthy gentlemen and ladies to make ends meet?
Is this a multiple choice or is it first one to ding in?
Ding in.
Ding.
You go, Louis. You take it.
Do I have to like indicate who should answer?
Whoever you heard first, because
I heard
we'll
Louis.
lag for each other. Yes. I'm worried that I might be wrong, but I want to say nettles.
You are unfortunately wrong.
No.
No nettles is food.
Run with the steal.
I think babies.
Yeah, Roden, babies.
What?
Selling babies
Yes.
is food.
We read it in school, and
That's so
I'm
much
pretty sure the
darker than
teacher
mine.
didn't tell us it was a satirical essay. He kind of wanted to see whether
If
people
you could
would cotton
tell.
on, and I don't know whether everybody did. I guess because like especially now reading it as like a modern audience and as school children, it's really easy for kids just to go, "Damn, people were crazy back then." You know?
What the fuck was up with
It
that?
also
think-
doesn't sound like that outrageous for like. It does feel like the kind of thing an English person
Yeah.
would say to an Irish person, like
Yeah,
back in the
Pretty
day.
much.
Like, it was pretty rough. It was pretty horrible to them. So,
Well done, Roden.
Classic.
And question number 2. James Taylor, after whom Taylor Swift was named, grew up in which state, which gives the name to his most famous song?
Thing
Yeah, go on.
Tennessee.
Unfortunately not.
I don't actually know who James Taylor is.
You don't know who James Taylor is?
Is he a country?
He's probably one of the most famous folk singers in
Alabama.
no.
Is it Alabama? Oh God. Okay.
No. Carolina in my mind? North Carolina.
Mm.
Right, well, I need
Okay.
to listen to some James Taylor.
Yeah,
Clearly. Is he
further
like folk
homework.
folk or country?
Further listening, James
You
Taylor.
gotta listen to James Taylor. He's like folk, but yeah, country people wouldn't accept him as country. But he's like
Sure.
country adjacent, I guess.
Is it because he wears a flat cap that he's not accepted as country? If he was wearing a cowboy hat, that would be more acceptable.
That's exactly what
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is interesting. Like, what is the difference with folk and country? It's kind of like a
It's the
thin
hat.
line, isn't it? Yeah,
It's-
it's the hat.
It's the Nashville establishment. It's like the
Mhm.
establishment of the music industry in Nashville, I think. Like
Yeah,
interaction with that
yeah.
tradition. Okay. 3rd and final question. What does the Swift banking system do?
Ooh.
Not work in Russia.
Probably right.
On a technicality.
I feel like I should know this, but I
remember it being a big deal when they like turned it off, but I don't know what it does.
Foreign exchanges, just foreign transfers of money for good exchange rates at the world best exchange rates or something on those lines.
Like
Anything close to that?
Well, so it transmits information between financial institutions. So it's like a bit
Okay,
broader
yeah,
than
no.
that, I guess.
No.
Yay, quiz.
They were some
Woo.
very intellectual questions.
They were. That's far too high.
I thought you people wanted a quiz.
It made me. It kind of felt a little bit called out because I just didn't know the answers to any of them. At least Ronan was there with the satirical essay.
Brennan was ready.
Make it look like at least one of us has some kind of education.
Oh my god. Sorry for calling you out on your own podcast.
I mean, it's a
like-
regular occurrence, to be fair.
There was a long while when there was just a lot of like closest to questions, and I discovered a skill for the closest two questions, and then I kind of lost it. But I had a really good run, and I really thought I'd just discovered something, like a hidden talent.
I think the real test would be is if we collated all the questions we've been asked on the show and we asked them again, and if we've retained any of that knowledge, because I haven't. And I know that if I was asked these same questions, even these 3 questions a week from now,
Yeah.
I probably would still get it wrong. And that's just a bad sign.
We're all getting older.
Weak knees, weak minds.
God, yeah, it's all falling apart, isn't it?
Well, thank you very much for the quiz, and thank you very much for the album pick. It's been a pleasure having you on. I hope
Thank
you've
you
enjoyed
so
it.
much. This has been so great. I need more platforms to talk about Taylor Swift. This has been a true joy for me.
Yeah, come back on for a part
Ronan,
2
you can do one of your spin-off podcasts and just
specifically designated to Taylor Swift.
designated just it's your spin-off, but it's just Anna talking about Taylor Swift non-stop for 2 hours. Just like a block text.
I can make that happen.
Reading the Wikipedia, basically. Maybe delving into some of the weirder conspiracy theories. That'd be quite a fun little offshoot, to be fair. Taylor Swift conspiracies.
Taylor Swift conspiracies is a fun
one
one.
of the strangest ones that you've come across.
I feel like you should not validate that instinct in me or anyone. Danger lies ahead.
How much moral responsibility do we have to not explore this line? Or is it? Are there any soft conspiracies that you can share with us quick before we go, or is there nothing that's acceptable to Stoke?
The one that I hold to be true, but is controversial and brave of me to say, is that Taylor Swift is queer. But I'm not even going to elaborate because it will just take us to some strange places.
Taylor Swift is queer, refuses to elaborate, leaves.
Exactly that.
Presumably, if people do their own research, there's a whole body of stuff.
I could put some crazy PowerPoints in the show notes, but I just don't think that's responsible.
I like the image that you actually have the PowerPoints ready to go. They're there. You can share the files straight away.
You're joking, but this could happen. I'm deadly fucking serious.
That's fantastic.
I know, not to delve into it too deeply, but has she ever dated a woman?
Look, you're opening Pandora's box. You don't know what you're doing.
Oh God. Maybe this is something we can delve into. Are you going to be around next weekend for Ronan's? This coming weekend?
Yes.
Should we delve into some Taylor Swift conspiracy
offline?
theories?
I can tell you anything, but online, I have to be responsible.
It's got to be protected. Yeah. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed. You can find us on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, etc., etc. We're also on YouTube and on SoundCloud. You can also, if you've had any thoughts or feelings about this episode, you can find us on Instagram at More or Something Else Entirely, or you can email in at moresomethingelseentirely@gmail.com. Obviously they're quite wordy tags, so you can find our links in the description of this episode, as well as timestamps to jump around. We have timestamps for all of our episodes. Give the podcast a rating if you enjoyed. Maybe find one of the polls or the discussion points underneath the episode and give us some feedback. But yeah, thanks all for tuning in. Have a good one.
What you doing later? I wanted you to get close to me. I think it's quite amazing. You keep on adding up, but your brother's going down like he's supposed to be. Hey, escalator, look at all those waiters darting around the sky like an apostrophe. I think it's quite amazing that you might break the look, but also you're a wonder in your own way.
The communists have nothing to offer but fat cheeks and eyeglasses and lying policemen. And the capitalists proffer napalm and money in green suitcases to the naked. And the communists create heavy industry, but the heart is also heavy.